One of the shining exemplars of Swami's teachings in this country is Prini Wimalachandra. New Zealand is fortunate that a graduate of Sai's first university for women chose to come to this country and to willingly share her vibrant energy and deep understanding of Sai's teachings widely within our beautiful country. Prini worked closely with Richard Wallis, firstly in teaching Sathya Sai Spiritual Education with the students from the Mount Eden Center in the Sai House, and then assisting with education in human values, presentations, and presentation introduction, the life and teaching of Sathya Sai. Together they made presentations throughout New Zealand. Prini brought a lovingly energy into everything she did and developed into a very effective public speaker, even making a speech at the Poornachandra Hall in Prasanthi to an audience of over 2,000 devotees on behalf of the alumni of the Anantapur University she attended. Recognizing her ability and eagerness, Richard, who was then national president, appointed Prini to the position of national spiritual convener. It was a position she filled with skill and energy. The task required much sacrifice for weekend and relaxation time, but Prini, with an eye on the welfare of the world, gave this gladly. Prini's contribution to the early establishment of the Sathya Sai International Organization of New Zealand has been substantial. Swami called her from her native country, Sri Lanka, to study at his ladies' university at Anantapur. After graduating from there, Prini moved to New Zealand, often referred to as New Sai Land by Sai Baba. Once in our land of the long white cloud, Prini threw herself into the task of spreading the message of spiritual and values-based education and discovering our inherent divinity. Prini's Buddhist background and study at Swami's University for Women at Anantapur gave her the background to understand and communicate Swami's multi-faith teaching. We have been blessed to have her input, which has substantially assisted in forming the basis of the organization as it is this time. To build any structure, a solid base is essential. Prini's input, along with others, in the formative years of the New Zealand organization helped to lay a foundation from which the organization can become a major contributor to achieving Swami's words, New Sai Land, a land where the people embody the 5 human values: righteousness, peace, truth, love, and non-violence, in thought, word, and deed. Prini also had the opportunity to visit and live in many countries such as Bosnia, Israel, Pakistan, and Cyprus. In these countries, she was able to carry on the work of sharing Swami's message by engaging in education in human values (EHV) work, organizing spiritual retreats, and actively participating in other Sai organization work. Her example is one that can inspire others guided by Swami to hold meaningful roles within the organization to participate in the sacred tasks of enabling mankind to see the light. Okay, Prini, thank you for giving your time to be interviewed with us. The whole idea of this interview is to capture how the Sai organization started in New Zealand. So before we go into that, I'd like to know about your background, where you're from, your school, education, things like that.
First of all, thank you very much for having me today. I come from a Buddhist background, and I studied in a school where we had to study Buddhism as a subject, but it was actually an Anglican former missionary school.
Where about in India? In India?
No, in Colombo.
In Colombo.
Yeah, it was in Colombo. So my family is Buddhist, so I had the Buddhist upbringing, but studying in an Anglican school, a missionary school. This was until I went to India. And so I used to go to church as part of our program, and also to the Buddhist temple. And my mother, in addition to going to the Buddhist temple, also went to the Hindu temple. So along with her, I used to go to the Hindu temple. Oh, right. So I was exposed to a lot of other faiths and had some understanding of, the different faiths and what it was all about, I guess, the main principles.
So where about in India was it?
This was in Colombo, And
I see.
then when I went to India,
Yeah.
that I experienced Sai Baba's teachings and
To where about in India?
it's in Bangalore.
In Bangalore.
In Bangalore
Right.
and in Puttaparthi.
Right.
My experience in India is purely with Sai Baba and
Alright.
Sai Baba's ashram. Yeah.
So what year was that?
So I went to India first. My first visit was in 79 for Christmas. 1979 for Christmas. That was my first visit.
So what was the idea clicked to you that you should get involved in Sai Baba?
Okay, when I was young and still in Sri Lanka, my mother and I were invited for a bhajan. So we went along, and I was a very small young girl. And so we didn't know what was happening. My mother had no idea who Sai Baba was. She couldn't answer all the questions I kept asking her. But somebody was selling some pictures of Sai Baba. And for no reason, I was attracted to the picture, and I insisted that she buys it for me.
So what was the attraction?
I can't actually explain, but the picture just attracted me. I wanted to have it.
Yeah.
And she said, no, you can't have it. We don't know who this person is. But of course, I wouldn't let her get into the car until she bought this picture for me. So just to get rid of me, she gave me 50 cents. And she said, go and buy it. And I brought it home, and she said, don't bring it into our shrine room or the prayer room, because we don't know who he is. And I didn't know what to do with the picture, so I just left it on the study table and I forgot about it. And slowly my mother then was introduced to Sai Baba's teachings, which was the greatest attraction for her. And she visited India, and then I went to visit her as well as Sai Baba in 1979.
So at that time, did you read any particular book of Sai Baba?
She had read stories about him to me, and I had attended bhajans, and I just had faith in him, and I can't explain why.
Yeah.
But there was an attraction, but there was no reason, but it was there was something about him that attracted me to him.
So can you recall a particular bhajan that really clicked to you?
A bhajan that clicked. I used to sing a few bhajans as a child. My mother got some of her friends to teach me some bhajans, and perhaps it was Krishna bhajans that I had a liking for Krishna, even though I had no idea who he was.
All right.
Yes. Until I went to Swami.
So tell us about your first visit to Sai Baba.
Yeah. So that was in 79 December. When I went, Sai Baba was very kind, and I think the first darshan he came up to my mother and asked if I was her daughter, and my brother had also gone, and my brother was there only for 4 or 5 days. But
What was your age at that time?
I was in my teens then.
All right.
And then he very kindly called us for an interview the next day, and at the interview I was a little worried because I had been told that Sai Baba knows everything that you've done, and I had done a few naughty things in my life, so I was a little afraid that he's going to talk about all this in front of everyone.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually make eye contact, but he asked my brother some questions, and then he took us to the inner interview room, and I had no idea why, but I suddenly asked him whether I could join his school.
All right.
And then the moment the words escaped my lips, I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? I don't know whether I can manage. I don't know what the experience is going to be, and maybe I shouldn't have. But before I could change my mind, Sai Baba said, yes, of course, I'll give you admission in my college. And he told me to take Pada Namaskar.
All right.
And then he went over and started talking to my brother. And that's when I realized the enormity of what I had said, and whether I can actually, manage to keep to the discipline and go through the boarding system there.
So how many interviews you had with Swami so far?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't counted.
So many that means.
No, I don't want to.
So give us some experience about your school days in Prasanthi.
Okay, so before I came from a very westernized background, and my free time activities were like, my favorite activity was ballet, dancing. I used to play tennis, swimming, play the piano. So, and my family, was very westernized, even though we lived in Colombo. And it was a total change for me going to Swami's school. And before I went to Swami's school, Swami was very kind. He told me exactly what subjects to do. He told Gemma Madam, who is a warden, who was a warden then, that I'll be joining and that I'm not used to, certain things, and but that I will manage. So that was very kind of him. And so he guided me right through. He told my mother to take me to Anantapur, meet the principal, to see the school. And even after I got admission, he told me the exact day to go to school, join the school. So there was a continuous guidance from Swami, as to when to enter Anantapur. And even after I entered Anantapur, I remember when we used to get regular interviews. All the students were called regularly, and we went quite often to Puttaparthi. And quite often he gave us a group interview. And the first one I got with the students, he came up to me and he asked me, how is the college? Is everything okay? And after that he told me, be good. But I was in the ashram for 6 months before I joined the college. So that was a good training period for me. I had to learn Sanskrit. I had to
So this is learning in the ashram?
Yeah, before I joined the college, as preparation. I had to start from the alphabet. I had to learn bhajans too because I wasn't very familiar with it. But
so is that a protocol for everyone?
No, for me, because I didn't know the script and we had to learn Sanskrit as a second language.
Right.
So really it gave me time to adjust to that life. And Swami was very kind to me. Very often on the darshan line he would talk to me, just say, something. And it was a gradual, I suppose, transformation.
Right. So there was only one Sanskrit teacher or there were a number of teachers?
Actually, when my time, there was only one Sanskrit teacher. All the teachers were females, but we had one male teacher who was in his 70s, and he was a teacher in Swami's school when Swami was a student. Yeah, so it was a very nice experience for us to have a teacher who was actually a teacher when Swami was a student. And he was, of course, very elderly, but very interesting and a very nice person. And he would tell us a lot of stories.
Can you share some stories?
About Swami, and they are well-known stories that are documented in all the in the books. And but when we didn't want a class, we knew how to get the master talking about Swami. I completely distracted him. So Swami was very kind to me, I must say. But he knew, when Swami treats each individual in the way that they need to be treated, and he knew that for me it was a sudden change, and I suppose my personality was such that slowly he guided me. And I also learned about the different Hindu deities like Rama, Krishna was all new to me. And I started reading about Krishna. And I always had a great attraction to Krishna. And so I read about 13 volumes on Krishna.
Oh, wow.
And I used to paint Krishna. So once at an interview, Swami just out of the blue asked me, where is Krishna? He asked, do you like Krishna? I said, yes. He asked me, where is Krishna? And my instinct was to show my heart and say, Krishna is in me. But my mother, who was seated next to me, kept say that he's everywhere. So I was, not quite sure what to say. So I just pointed at my heart, but then at the same time followed my mother's instruction. Yeah. Then Swami looked at me, smiled and said, Pagal, Pagal, which in Hindi means fool. Mad. And he said, Krishna is talking to you.
Oh, right.
And then immediately he created a pendant, which was an Om with Krishna on it, and he gave it to me. So, that was very, very nice. Yeah. And also I had some habits which perhaps were not acceptable in the Indian culture. And for example, I used to be a left-hander, and then my parents tried to train me to be a right-hander. So I'm kind of ambidextrous. I can use both hands. So when Swami gave vibhuti, I automatically stretched my left hand, and then Swami said, "No, it's not a good habit. Give me your right hand." So even so, such minor things, he very gently guided me through that.
So from the ashram, then you moved to the college.
Yes, college is about 2 hours journey from the ashram.
So how's the class divided? How many people in one class?
So we had the pre-intermediate, which is like pre-university, which was slightly bigger classes. I was the first batch to go through the proper curriculum of the Sathya Sai University.
Oh,
yeah. So our batch was the first batch to do this new system.
What year was that?
So that was in 83, I think.
Okay,
82, 83. 82, 83. And then we had smaller classes, but it was a very sort of intensive sessions. Classes were small. I would have had maybe 15 at the most in my class. And but we had exams every month. We had tests in all the subjects, and then end of the term we had the main.
So what subjects were you taking?
Swami, I asked Swami's advice, and he asked me to do BCom. So
what involved? What subjects were there?
So it was mathematics, business communication, and all the commerce subjects. Yeah.
Right. So in the classes, were there any religious subjects? Or?
Yes. So in the system they had was all art students had to study one science subject, and all science students had to study an art subject. So it was called an elective. So we, as commerce students, we had to study about the lives of great scientists, also of great artists. So we studied the lives of Newton and Leonardo da Vinci, and so it gave us. We also had another subject called awareness subject, where we studied all the religions in the world, and so that again gave us an awareness about the
other religions.
Were
you tested on that? Was an exam on that?
Yeah, we had.
It's a serious matter.
So we were tested on that too.
I understand that Swami used to come to the classroom. So is that true?
That used to happen in relation to Anantapur College. It happened in the early years when it was first established in the late 60s and early 70s. He would come. He had a room in the college, and he would actually stay for a few days and go to the hostel and classes regularly. But as time went on, that the number of days he spent in Anantapur reduced, and it was basically a short visit for a few hours. So that when we were there, he did come, but it was only for a few hours, and usually we gave a performance. He gave a discourse. In my final year, he came for a sports meet. So when I was there, we didn't have the sports meet in the stadium like they do now.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
He came to college, and so we had a sports meet in college with Swami as the chief guest. So in a way, we were fortunate because we didn't have a lot of people. It was just us, teachers, Swami, and a very small group that came with Swami.
Were there any interviews with Swami in the school? No.
He would know. We had lunch with Swami. Swami, we would all sit in the prayer hall, and we would all sit in line, and Swami would be there at the head table. So we had lunch with Swami, and the interview was a discourse to all the students and the teachers together. But he would come to the hostel, and we would put up small performances like a drama.
So talking about lunch, tell us something about the food, the canteen. How was it?
The food that we got was, actually we were involved in the preparation. So we had to, every morning after Suprapadam and Omkar Suprapadam, that was the first thing we did. We had to go down to the kitchen, and in batches we were rostered to do the different duties in the school. So you would have cleaning, you would have doing the chapatis or cutting vegetables. And so we had a turn to do everything.
So it must be quite stricter discipline and things like that?
Yes, like we were involved in the running of the body.
Yeah.
So we did the serving, and after the students finished eating, we also did the cleaning of we all sat down, and when we had our meals, we didn't talk. So it was, you had to be aware of what you're doing and you're eating, and your full concentration is on that. And also you are not supposed to waste any food.
Oh.
So when you finish, someone will be there at the door to check that you've eaten all your food.
So during the holidays, you were allowed to go home?
Yeah, we could go home. I would stay in the ashram because my mother was working in the hospital as a doctor. So my holidays were also in the ashram with Swami. Yeah.
So were you, as a student, were you allowed to do any service?
Yes. We could work in the canteen. We used to work in the stores. Those days there was only a small store, not the big store that you see now. So most of the time during the holidays we worked in the store. And the first Grama, I was involved in the first Grama Seva that Swami did in 1985.
That's when it started, yes.
Which was during summer holidays. And most of the students had gone home. So it was a few of us, boys and girls, who were involved in that project, and that was really a very nice experience for us. So we went to the village. The girls and boys started by going every day, but I think for the girls it was very tiring. So Swami told the girls to go alternate days, and then every day at darshan in the evening he would come and he would give each one of us with his own hands huge big mangoes. As his appreciation for the work we do, and used to also give various other little things. And then he said that, if we do a real good sincere job, that the last day he will come with us. So we carried this project on for 1 month, and then on the last day Swami came with us, and he went in front in his car, and all the students came.
Oh, he came actually in the village?
Yeah, he came to all the villages that we'd been working in. So he went in front in the car, and we were in buses behind him. And these villages were in some beautiful setting up on the mountains. So you had to go through a forest, and it was the very windy road. So when the Swami's car took a bend, he would put his handkerchief out and wave at us at every bend. And then
slow down.
and also wave.
Yeah, wave.
And at the village, Swami went around to see what we had done, and then he spoke to the villagers and gave discourses and gave a ring to the headman. And so it was a wonderful experience.
Okay, so knowing that you had a good experience as a student in the school, so what is about the Sai Baba's teachings that appeals to you?
Sai Baba's I think the most simplest one that I try to practice is love all, serve all. And something that was really stressed upon us as students was service to the community. And it was part of our education in our degree course that we had to do a certain number of hours of service. It was similar to our academic studies, and we were actually marked on our enthusiasm and our sincerity. And it was mainly done so that this aspect is inculcated in our life and that it becomes a part of life. And I think that it was really a good training, because since then, wherever I have been in my life, I've looked at opportunities to do service, and I've had the opportunity to live in many countries around the world. And every time I went to a new country, I always looked to see how I could serve the community. So it is, you might think that, it's a lot to do. You have academic studies and social work, but in the end, there is Swami had a purpose, and I have understood that it's worked in our case.
It's good to know that. See if we can share with us any greatest miracle that you have come across with Swami.
The greatest miracle for me is the change that has happened in people's hearts and minds when they have come into contact with Swami. And I can only speak for myself. The greatest miracle in my life has been that the change that has happened to me since coming into contact with Swami Sai Baba and his teachings. I've done a complete U-turn in my life, and I won't be what I am today if not for that experience, and I'm really thankful and grateful for that. So I have seen other miracles, but for me the change that happens in the human heart and mind is the biggest miracle.
Okay. So what is the greatest truth that Swami has taught you?
Swami once asked me, what is the meaning of education? And I gave various answers which were not acceptable to him. And I feel that I also said end of education is character. And he left it with me to find my own answer to the question, what is education? And he also spoke about 3HV, so harmony in head, heart and hand. And I've come to realize for me his message of education, which is most dear to my heart, and the meaning of education for me is a harmony of head, heart and hand. And over the years he's really encouraged me to get involved in the Sri Sathya Sai Education in Human Values program, as well as the Sri Sathya Sai, we call it SSC, the Sathya Sai Spiritual Education program. And these two are two programs that I'm very, very keen on, and I've been actively working around the world on these two programs.
Now I can see you're involved in SSC. So you came to New Zealand, and I understand you were involved in SSC. Can you tell us how you came to New Zealand, how you got involved in the Sai organization in New Zealand?
So when I came to New Zealand, and that again was on Swami's guidance that we came to New Zealand. I came in 1990, and then I had already met Richard Wallis and Madeline Gilman in India before I came. The moment I came, Richard said, okay, we need you for it was called Balvikas then, Balvikas program, and he said, I couldn't drive then, so he said, okay, I'll take you every Sunday. And so I started then it was called the Auckland Centre, and the classes were held at the Sai House, where the library is now. And I started as Richard's assistant. So for a while I sat with him and I observed how the classes were run, and I helped him. And then after that I told Richard, I think I'm now ready to have my own class because I want a challenge. And so then I used to go with him every weekend. Richard and I spent half of a Saturday at Madeline's house making lesson plans and making photocopies and preparing a lesson that can be handed over to each child. So two of them have really been guiding stars for me in this area. And so that's how I first got involved in SSC with Richard, and I still use those lesson plans that I made with him. Yeah, so they are a very good resource for me.
So you also held some official positions in this organization?
Yes, I was in my early 20s then, when Richard asked me if I would become the National Spiritual Coordinator. And I said, yes, I'll do it as long as I don't have to do any public speaking. And he said, no, you don't, maybe occasionally. And I didn't realize then that this involved a lot of public speaking. So as the National Spiritual Convener, I had a lot of guidance from, again, Richard, Madeline. Bernard Gilliman was also very helpful, and Uncle Muru. And with Richard, I used to regularly visit not only the centres in Auckland, but around New Zealand.
Yeah, I remember you came to Hamilton, yes.
Yes, and we used to conduct sort of training sessions and discussions on running good study circles. And also we travelled and we spent time in the different centres just to see what was happening and how we can help the centres. And we also did many public seminars and public meetings in all these towns and cities around New Zealand.
So those days, and you compare what's happening now, can you give us some comparison, or do you reckon something can be done better? Or
Well, the organization has grown since then. When it was smaller, I guess it was in a way easier to manage, but we had a lot of public programs and things were quite universal. We had a lot of members from the local communities. So we had a lot of Maori members and the Kiwis, or I suppose Caucasian members, as well as Indian and Sri Lankan. But in general, there were smaller centers, so we knew each other well. We organized a lot of combined activities, service activities. And of course, now the numbers have grown, so we don't really know each other as well as we did before. Another important activity we had were the retreats.
Oh, yes.
Every couple of, I think once in 2 years we had a retreat, and we were able to use the Maori Center in Tuakau, which accommodated quite a number of people, I think almost 200 or over 200. So they were all residential retreats. We had very few day visitors, and this really brought the whole family together.
So where was this retreat?
In Tuakau. In Tuakau, that we had most of our retreats, and we had some
international speakers.
International speakers like Dr. Jack Hislop, Rita and Robert Bruce, Arthur and Poppy came regularly. So we had some Victor Kanus here, and that was an activity that really brought everyone together. We also had some very successful public seminars, and quite a lot of people from the public got involved in our activities, especially our service and education activities. So I guess it was slightly different then. We had a very universal flavor to what we did then. The center I used to go to then was called Auckland Center. Once a month we had a universal service, which was organized by Bruno Gilliman. And we had a small band by Bruno and Kate and Mike Roundtree.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so that was also, and they composed their own devotional songs in English. So we had quite a universal flavor, I would say. And study circles were an important part of our activities.
So then you went overseas and you came back. So tell us your experience about other countries that you went to.
So in 97, my husband went overseas, and I was actually wondering whether to go or not to go. And that year I had the opportunity to take a group of children from Auckland to perform a play in front of Swami for Christmas. So we did the play in, I think, Christmas of 97.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time Swami gave us an interview, and then Swami said that I should join my husband, who was in Bosnia then. So I said, so in my mind I thought, okay, if I can attend the Sai Center, then I would go. And as Swami would have it, the Sai Center, my husband found a Sai Center there, and it happened to be 5 minutes away from where we lived. And so I went to the Sai Center in Bosnia, and I met the most wonderful people that I so devoted to Swami, and people from all different faiths. So there were Catholic Christians, there were the Orthodox Christians, and Muslims. So all three religious faiths were represented in the center. They were working very harmoniously, and this was just after the war in the Balkans, and I believe they met right through the war, and this was the only group that came together in harmony during that time and actually helped each other.
Did any of the group have visited Prasanthi?
Oh yes, yes. The Bosnian group, with the help of the German side devotees, had visited Prasanthi, and they still continue to visit in small groups. Even last year they came for the education conference, and during the war they've had some wonderful experiences with Swami. Swami actually helping them and saving their lives. So they have immense faith in Swami, and especially in the education program and the service program.
So you keep in touch with some of them?
Yes, I keep in touch with them. And when I was there, so wherever I went, I looked at service opportunities, and I went along with them to do a service activity in a school. And the principal of that school happened to be a Sai devotee. Not an active Sai devotee, but she had faith in Swami.
Yeah.
So I asked her if we could start teaching human values in a school. And she was very happy. But of course the devotees in the center were not familiar how to do it. So my New Zealand experience really came in handy. And so we started, so I had to do it through a translator. So I would do my little bit. So it was really teaching English and human values. And then they would, someone from the center would go with me and translate to the kids. And so we had a great time, and it was very successful. And a few years later, one of the Sai devotees, who was a teacher in a secondary school, and I used to work with her too, so I did the EHV program in 2 schools in Bosnia. She started training teachers, and then she invited me as part of her training program, and so we trained all the teachers in that school, as well as a few other schools. So EHV has taken root, I would say, in a lot of those countries. Yeah.
So you said you were there for 3 years.
Yes, almost 3 years, maybe 2, between 2 and
So then you came back to New Zealand.
Now, after Bosnia, I went to Israel.
Oh, yeah.
And then again, the time I went, the Israeli devotees, they were wondering how to introduce education in human values to their center members. They didn't have any children, they were mostly adults. And I happened to go by coincidence, but there is nothing called coincidence. When they were planning this, and so I said, okay, I have some idea, and so we can do it. And so we started, I started talking to them about human values, and I said we should first train everyone before we do it. And when I went to India, I was actually evacuated because of the problems in Israel at that time, in 2000, evacuated to back to wherever I wanted. So I went to India. And then one day Swami came up to me and asked me what I was doing. And I had just moved to Israel. So I said, Swami, I have just moved to Israel. And I said, I want to start EHV. And then Swami said, yes, education in human values. So for me, it was reconfirming what I was already planning to do. And Carol Alderman was seated next to me, and she had a training program in UK. So we invited her to Israel, and she trained 40 people. 50% of them were non-devotees, and the other 50 were devotees, and there were teachers there too. And so we had a training program for a week for 40 people, and then we carried forward by actually training teachers at the teacher training college too. Yeah. So I taught EHV, that is education in human values, at the UN school and at some kindergartens, and it's still continuing now in Israel. Yeah.
So then you came back to New Zealand?
Sorry, no, of course. I traveled then to Pakistan.
Oh, right.
And I had the opportunity again to work in a school that was run for Afghan refugees. And so I spoke to the lady running the school about the Education in Human Values program, and I said it's coming from India, and if you the foundation, it was started by someone in India, and if you are comfortable with that, I would like to introduce it here. And then she said, anything that is good, we are happy. It doesn't matter. We will embrace all nationalities. And so with a German friend of mine from the German embassy, she and I, we started, and I had to teach her but I had a lot of books on education in human values. She was also a drama teacher. And so she and I did this program in that school. And the lady running the school told me that she could see a change in the children when it came to honesty. And so we could see results there. And then from Pakistan, we moved to Cyprus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And again, Swami was able, Swami, if there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
And Swami introduced me to people who were very interested in education in human values again. And I was able to, with the help of the Greek devotees, we were able to run human values training sessions for teachers in a private primary school as well as some kindergartens, and we trained a lot of teachers, and I went regularly about once a month and took classes also in the primary school.
Experience that you had with the devotees in overseas.
Yeah, the devotees in Bosnia had some very interesting experiences during the war, and I'll share a couple of them with you. One was they were meeting in a lady's apartment where they all came together, but you know, during the time of war, everyone is they suspect each other and watch the actions of each other, because you never know what people are planning. And so all these devotees from the different faiths, the three faiths, Catholic, Muslim and Orthodox Christians, they used to come together, and they were all concerned that, you know, they might query to find out what was going on. And so one day a policeman came, and as soon as this lady in whose house the bhajans were held saw the policeman, she had this huge big picture of Swami right at the entrance, and she was really scared because she didn't know how exactly to explain to the policeman. But she didn't have time to hide Swami's picture. The policeman came in the moment she opened the door, and when she looked back, the Swami's picture was not there. And so she couldn't work out where the picture had gone. Anyway, she followed the policeman. The policeman came, looked around, and then he just asked what they do, and she just said, you know, we have people from all the three faiths coming here and meeting, and we are praying for peace. And he was happy, and he went. And after she shut the door, she ran back to look for Swami's picture. And what had happened was the picture had gone under the carpet.
Ooh.
Not that Swami has to hide, but it was because this lady had this in her mind, and so the picture had just on its own, by itself, gone under the carpet. Another interesting experience they told me was during Shivaratri. Swami, they used to actually celebrate Shivaratri and have an all-night bhajan. And so they needed firewood for the bhajans, and they had to go, and you know, they didn't have trees. They had cut down all the trees. They burnt their shoes and their books, everything for firewood for their own houses. So one lady had collected firewood, and she had to dodge snipers to get to the bhajan place. And then they found that from Swami's photo, heat was emanating. So Swami was actually giving them heat from the picture, and when they went near the picture, they could feel the heat coming from the picture. And another beautiful experience was they had to stand in queues for water. And when this one of the devotees, her name was Alexandra, she was standing in a queue for water. She saw Swami on the other side of the road. She saw Swami's figure, and then the figure went around the building. And so she immediately crossed the road and followed the figure and went around the building, and of course she couldn't see anything. But the moment she crossed the road, a grenade that was, you know, people were always attacking the Bosnians, those people who were attacking from the hills, came and fell right where she was standing in the queue. So if she had been there in the queue, she would have been, she wouldn't have been there anymore. So Swami saved her. And the same lady has another wonderful experience. When she lived near the market where a very sad bombing happened, where a lot of people died. That day in the morning, she went to the market. It's called the Green Market in Bosnia, in Sarajevo. When she went there, a voice kept telling her, "Go home, go home." And she wasn't sure whether it was her imagination or whether it was really somebody, you know, telling her. But so she ignored the voice and she continued to go. But the voice was so strong, she couldn't ignore it. So finally she listened to the voice and she turned back and went home. She was not too far from the market. She couldn't even get into the house, and she heard this huge explosion. And there were some huge explosions at the market that day, and a lot of people were injured, and also unfortunately there were some deaths too. And but she was so thankful that, she, on 2 occasions that Swami has saved her. And so like this, they had many wonderful experiences. So they have a lot of devotion and faith in Swami and gratitude for his kindness. Yeah. And they have also suffered, they have suffered in the war. They have lost members of their family, but they still understand that this is part of life, and they are thankful for small mercies. Yeah.
So what was the format of the bhajans in those countries?
Different countries seem to have different things. Like Israel was very universal. We sat around, someone played the guitar, we had the dog sitting with us, and we sang mostly English songs and a few Sanskrit songs, and then we had a study circle. So very informal, just a group sitting.
So this is meeting on Thursdays?
A meeting on Thursdays. Bosnia was a little bit more structured. They were very fond of Sanskrit bhajans.
Oh, yes.
So they liked to sing Sanskrit bhajans. But after my experience in New Zealand, I told them that, it would be good to also sing some songs in the local culture so other people can come. And so they then slowly introduced a mixture of Sanskrit and songs from their own local culture, religious songs, and they composed songs. There were some very good singers there. And so it had gradually we were able to encourage more mix. And Cyprus, of course, was a small group, just a few of us. Yeah. And we had bhajans in Pakistan too.
Is that right? There's no restriction in those countries, is it? Is it openly you can do it?
I'm not sure whether you can do it openly, but we had it in his house. And basically we would, it was like doing prayers. I wouldn't say you can do it openly because there were some security risks, but we did it in the house and Swami looked after us.
Sounds good.
It was okay. There are some Sai devotees in Karachi who have visited Prasanthi Nilayam. Yeah, so there are devotees in Pakistan too. Cyprus is 2 countries. One side is the Greek Republic and the other side is the Turkish Republic. And I had started, through a friend, I had started going to the Turkish side and doing some voluntary work in an orphanage, teaching English to children after school. And then I got very friendly with the volunteers at the orphanage. It was a very big orphanage run by a German NGO. And then I spoke to them about the Human Values program. And they were very interested. So what I did was I invited the Human Values trainers from Greece to come and do the training for them, because this, they could understand. No, we had to do it through a translator. But what was special about it was here was a Greek person going to the Turkish Republic, and then the relationship wasn't very, they had conflicts, but here they were very willing to have a person from Greece come and train them. And so it was really very nice to see the harmony and the love that existed between them. And so we trained all the volunteers on the Turkish side, and I continued to go as long as I was there to work with the children. And also in Cyprus, the Greek trainers came and trained the teachers in the schools that I was working in, and they continue to have that connection.
So did you go to any other country after that?
From Cyprus we came back to New Zealand. Yeah, so it was about 10 years around the place. Wow. But while I was in Yugoslavia, that's in Bosnia, I worked in Croatia in the Dalmatian coast, and I ran some workshops in Macedonia. That was the time that the Kosovo conflict was taking place. And my husband had gone soon after the conflict was not resolved, but they had come to some understanding. So the UN had to go to help the situation. And when I was there, there were a lot of volunteers from Macedonia working with the children in Kosovo. And I think one day there were about over 100 volunteers who came, and I gave them a training in education in human values. And they were very interested, and they actually invited us to bring some trainers and do an official training. So I left it, because I was there in the country only for a short time, I left it with the Macedonian side devotees to...
There was no restriction from the government or any rules like that?
No, there wasn't. This was a volunteer. This was a very big NGO. Yeah.
Right.
And in Croatia, I organized some youth retreats for the Sai youth. Especially the Bosnian children, they had gone through a very tough time. So I took all the youth from Bosnia to Dalmatia, and we had a camp at a place... it was part of the coast of Bosnia, which is very small. And then they enjoyed it so much. And all my material, everything was based from my New Zealand experience. And after that, I organized a retreat for the youth between the Bosnian youth and the youth from part of Croatia called Split, the Dalmatian coast. And we had a weekend retreat, and it was very nice because these two countries that had been fighting, and here now the youth are coming together in love and in Swami's name to celebrate Swami's message and understand it.
So have you been back there since then?
I went to Bosnia once to actually do some training in the school where I was teaching, doing volunteer work. But this time I went to train the teachers. I've been there once since I left here.
And you probably would have met them in Prasanthi?
Yeah, I am in touch with them. We exchange material. I meet them in Prasanthi Nilayam. And I also went and spent some time in Greece, and I'm in touch with the Greek devotees who are involved in EHV. And once, when I was in Cyprus, I went to Serbia with the Greek trainers, and we did a training there too.
So what's your involvement now in New Zealand? What?
In New Zealand, I'm a member of the ISSC, Institute of Sathya Sai Education. So I'm a trainer. So we train groups of, at the moment we've trained office bearers, and we are currently running a training for the youth. And also I'm an SSC teacher for the Mount Eden Center. So that's a regular commitment on every Sunday. And I've seen in the last 3-4 years we've been working with a group of children, and I've seen the development in these children. They were very shy children, but now they are able to give public speeches and very good actors and presenters. So we've been really working with their skills, and it's very rewarding to see how the children are blossoming.
So the class is still the same, like silent sitting and...
Yeah, we use the 5 techniques. We use and we lay great emphasis on silent sitting because this day and age it's very important. We also have regular parents sessions. So we back up what parents need to back up what we do. So we discuss what we do, and we have parenting sessions on a regular basis. And now the parents have started actually running those meetings.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So the last one we had was children and technology, and it's an issue for parents now, how to control technology, or how, technology has its...
So this is iPad, iPhone, things like that?
Yes, it has good and bad, but it has everything in limited quantities. And problem, I realized is parents don't know how to control it or how to limit it, because the kids want to be with their iPhones and iPads all the time. So we had some very healthy discussions on this.
With the
parents, and they shared the different techniques they use in order to guide the children. Can you
share some techniques?
Some parents were quite strict about it, so they have a certain time. So every day they are given, say, 30 minutes, and with their iPad, and after that you have to give it back. If you don't give it back, then you can't use the iPad for the next 1 week. so that was how one parent was. So they were all sharing their ideas and learning from each other. And we have also something that we started in the 90s when I was here, a spiritual diary. And in the spiritual diary they write if they did silent sitting every day, if they did something kind, if they listen to their parents, and so they get a tick for that, and the parents have to sign off. And this is not that we are trying to bringing lots of rules and regulations, but it's bringing a little bit of discipline in this world where, discipline is almost considered not a very good word. So some moderation. I won't say discipline, some moderation.
Yeah, you have been so many other parts of the world. What do you think of the youth? Are they getting more involved in desalinization, or are they drifting away, or what's your experience on that?
Well, I guess it depends from country to country, really. In Israel, for example, everybody knows about Swami. I had a picture of Swami that I took to get framed, and they said, "Oh, this is Sai Baba." And then I just had a picture of Swami in the car. When I went to put petrol, they looked into the car and they said, "Oh, that's Sai Baba, isn't it?" So I was really surprised that everywhere I went, if I happened to have a picture of Sai Baba, they all recognized him. Because everybody in that country is looking for peace. And the interesting thing was, we, again from our New Zealand experience, wherever we went, both in Yugoslavia and in Israel, we organize residential retreats for the adults. So in Israel, we had a retreat in a place called a kibbutz. And there are many kibbutzes in Israel. It's like community living.
Oh, yeah.
There is one where 50% of the community is Jewish Israeli and 50% is Arab Israeli. And so we had our retreat there, and it was attended by Jewish Israelis, Arab Israelis, and a Palestinian. So it was quite unique, and Arthur and Poppy were the guest speakers.
Oh, yeah.
So they were from a Christian background, and Hazid and I were from a Buddhist background. So here in Israel we have a multi-faith group. We had a wonderful, I took some friends of mine too, who were not Sai devotees, and there were youth interested, but I found everyone in Israel is looking for peace. So there were mostly adults, but the youth are coming in and getting interested. Yugoslavia had quite a good youth group, but I think more needs to be done by us adults to bring the youth in. There has to be a lot of understanding, because the youth face a lot of challenges, a lot of distractions, so we can't expect them to do what we did when we were their age. So again, I think the understanding, we have to cross these barriers and really go down to their level and understand where they're coming from and their challenges. And there is a need, I feel, for us as adults to embrace the youth and bring them in to the organization and make it easier for them and not more difficult. Yeah, so there is a learning process on both sides, but develop the kids and the teen youth. The teen youth, that's the age which is challenging more than the youth, the teen youth, because they have their studies and friends and extracurricular activities, and there is a gap between the SSC kids and the youth. The teen youth is where we are losing the children, so we have to pay more attention to that area and see how we can make it more interesting, get the parents involved, get youth to come and work with the teen youth. And
is that working in New Zealand?
I think they are looking at it, but I think more needs to be done in that area, and we have to all put our heads together and not just leave it to the youth to sort it out. But I don't see the adults getting too involved in it, and I think we need to very gently see how we can also contribute in that area.
Okay, Prini, we have almost come to the end of this interview. I have one last question. If you had to sum up Swami's message, Swami's message in few words, what would it be?
For me, as I said earlier, it would be love all, serve all, and end of education is character. And finally, harmony of head, heart and hand. These are the three most important quotations of Swami that have been very dear to me and that I am always trying to adhere to and to practice.
Oh, thank you, Prini, for giving your time for this interview. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, thank you very much.